Thank you to Torklift Central for sending me the Ecohitch for my Model Y here. It's 3,500 pound towing and 350 pound tongue. To get started, what we do here is just take off this trim panel. These clips are a little stubborn. You shouldn't break them though. If you just do what I did here and also peel back the weather stripping a little bit so it gets out of the groove, then it should just pop free. The next thing we're going to do is start popping all of the push pin clips here that we have access to. And this will just make it so we're able to pop out this rear trunk storage later. And you have these trim panels on the side here. Those just pop out and they give us access to the rest of the push pin clips. The back there is just kind of velcroed to the other piece, so you just pull it a little bit and it'll come out. Now that that's out, we can do the rest of these clips on the side. Now we're just removing the clips that are left for these side panels, and then you just want to get your pry tool behind there. If you look in the crack on the top where those buttons are, you can kind of see where the clips are and where you need to pry from. It just takes a little work, but that will pop free as well. And we're only trying to just get it out far enough to have access behind the tail light. Same thing on the other side. And this one's just a little bit easier to get out. And there's less stuff behind it since you don't have the charging port on this side. And just pay attention to how the weather stripping's over that part of the trim. So when you put it back together, you can do the same thing. You can see right there that stud has an 8mm nut on it for the taillight. There's one above that one as well, and that's the only nuts that are holding the taillight in. The rest is just kind of pushed in these clips that you'll see later. Now we're just going to remove this plug off the top of the taillight. There's one on each side, and you just need to do that in order to remove the taillight later. Now we're moving on to the passenger side wheel well. This trim bezel is also clipped in, and once you get that first one out, you can see where the other clips are. The bottom of it, back towards the bumper, kind of has a piece that fits inside of the bumper, so you kind of have to pull up in order to get it out. And that's just showing you one of the clips, and that bolt right there, it holds the bumper on. Same thing on the other side. We're just pulling the trim back up far enough that it gives us access to that bolt. Also, what you might want to do is put some tape along this so that you're prying against the tape and not your bumper. I have some paint protection film on the bumper, so I didn't really care about doing that, and it didn't get ruined. And with the plastic tools, if you're gentle, it really shouldn't ruin your paint. But if you're worried about it, just put some tape along there. What I'm showing you there are the other side where the nut is that the screws from underneath go into. Some people have issues with that part getting stripped out, so that's why I have access to it, just in case the nut starts spinning inside of the plastic tub in the back. And then here I just put one of those jack pucks under. You can search Amazon for a Tesla like jack puck or whatever, and it just fits inside of the frame there so that you can jack up on that point instead. Underneath here, there's some 10mm bolts and some push pin clips. They're not too bad to remove. And then once you get them all out, what you're trying to do is push the tray forward so that you can push the plastic past the bumper, because it clips into there. So you're trying to get it forward enough to bring it out from underneath it. And you don't want to be under it when you drop it, because there's usually some rocks and sand and stuff like that. It's just going to go in your face. And you can see what I'm talking about here. That's what you're trying to push forward. That's your rear tub for the trunk. And the bolts go through that into the inside. There's the nut behind the taillight, and you're using an 8mm gear wrench here. You could probably fit a 1/4-inch socket too on a ratchet. This just seemed the easiest. So I lost the video of me actually pulling the taillight out, which it's kind of difficult. You have to pull it straight out, and it's held in with pins inside those clips. The outside ones are the ones that are most difficult to pull out of. You can try and push it from inside the car too, but just know it's going to take a little bit of force to pop the light out. And then you have access to these 10mm bolts here that hold the bumper on. And that one's an 8mm, I believe, on the side. Once you have all the bolts out, the tray's done, now you're ready to pull the bumper off. You're basically trying to lift it up from the bottom while kind of pulling it back. It's great if you have another person. I didn't. That's why I've got that blanket underneath, just in case, because I know it's probably going to fall on it. And then there's one harness clipped in just above that reinforcement bar. And I'm just showing you kind of how it clips in here. None of them broke, thankfully, or stretched out or anything. Then I'm just going to unplug the bumper so I can set it aside a little bit. I'm just showing you this plastic bar above it. I think it had just maybe 3 10mm bolts on it. You don't have to disconnect any of the wires because it gives you enough slack to just kind of put it out of the way. It's held in with clips on each end. And then these are the nuts that hold the reinforcement bar on. Once you get that out, you're able to just pull it. And then we remove the reinforcement bar from the existing mounts. And there's one bolt also that was behind the bar holding it to the mount. So now we're going to put that back onto the tow hitch, which is one thing I like about the design on this tow hitch, is that you use your existing reinforcement bar, which is made out of aluminum, instead of some of the tow hitches that are steel and then you don't have a reinforcement bar. So I just feel like anything to do with, you know, an accident, something like that, you want as much OEM stuff as possible. This is a little bit easier if you were to put it on its side instead, so that the nuts just kind of stay in the socket while you're putting them in. It's really just the one that's further in that's harder to get to. The rest you can reach. You just got to be careful because that aluminum's not filed or anything. It's just raw cut, so it does have some sharp edges to it. So once you get all of the nuts on the front of it, you're going to have to flip the bar over and put the provided bolt and spacer in from the other side. The other benefit of using that aluminum reinforcement bar is that it has the tow hook installed, or at least the threads for it. And that spacer just goes in between, and then the bolt goes in. These washers, 2 go on the right, or the outermost side. 1 goes on the inside, as per the directions. Right here, I'm just checking, because you can slide that bumper up and down a little bit. So I'm just checking the clearance to that plastic piece. What I did is just lift it slightly so it's not sitting on the grooves, and then tighten it down so it's kind of in the middle of the slots. And then here I'm not tightening it all the way, just enough to hold it in place. And then I'm going to use a torque wrench. It's around 35 foot-pounds, I think, for this. Once that's on, then we can put this back on, and you can just clip it in first from each side there, and then it'll line up with the bolt holes, and then you can put those 10mm bolts back in. All right, the next thing is to get the bumper back on. Definitely easier with 2 people. If you're by yourself, though, just kind of hold it like that, and then I was clipping in the harness in. You can get the bumper close enough to the car to connect the wire harness, and then as you lift the bumper, you can slide it back on the little holder that it's on. And here I'm just setting it on where the taillight clips are, and then just kind of working it around that way, checking by the wheel well. There's like the wheel well liner that you kind of want to tuck in behind. You'll see. You kind of just got to work side to side. Right there, I'm just using the weather stripping and tucking that into the bumper so it's not in the way. And then it's just little by little getting it all to clip in. Now that that's all in, just kind of showing you how it is finished. All right, we're just installing the passenger side taillight here. This wire is shorter on this side, so it's a little more difficult to click it in, but you'll hear it when it's good to go. Just line up the pins, tap it with your hand. Same thing on this side. You'll feel it kind of click in there. Then we just have to cut these out of the back cover. That way it's not stuck inside. Definitely a safer tool to do this with, but that's all I could find near me. Those holes are 3 over from the center Tesla logo. Try to just center the hole in the middle of the square. And that's the magnet and the bracket that holds it inside the hitch. And it still fits flush and everything when you put it in there. There it is finished. And without the cover on. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it.